how would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have Joy Friedland with us. And Joy is the CEO of Brit Properties, syndicates debt-free industrial real estate in Chicago area. He has acquired over 100 industrial properties with his syndicated investor base of over 250 members. Brit Properties primarily focuses on standalone single tenant net lease buildings that generate steady cash flow distribution. So, Joe, tell us, what are the 5 steps that you recommend entrepreneurs in order to make the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and the wisdom of how they sold their first million.
The 5 steps. These are my 5 steps. I'm sure you've heard many other people's versions.
Well, 500 multimillionaires right now interview.
Okay, so let's go through it. Number 1 to me is picking a niche, picking what type of business you want to be in based on having passion. If you don't have passion, it's hard to work hard. So if you pick something that you really, really enjoy, which is what I did, I chose industrial real estate. And it's a business where I get to meet people who own all kinds of companies, who've built manufacturing operations, distribution operations, and I get to see every kind of company that makes every kind of product. It is so interesting to me. So I picked a niche that matched my passion for understanding and being curious about business. Number 2, this is really must have a mentor, must have an experienced person who has done it before, is successful at it, is willing to teach you. I had a mentor by the name of Stephen Podolsky, and he is still my friend, and it's 43 years later after I went to work for him right out of college. The man is so capable. He's such a good thinker. And he was great at his business, and he was willing to share and teach me the business. Without a mentor, I think you can flounder. The third one is to work in the business you want to be in for somebody who's doing it. Starting a business where you've never done it before, that's gambling. That's risky. So I have a cousin who's in a business that's making hundreds of millions of dollars in volume. He is in the business of supplying airplane parts to the airlines.
Wow.
But he went to work for somebody and he learned the business, so he knew the ins and the outs. If he had just started it before understanding how that business worked, I don't think he would have been as successful as he was. And he had a mentor and he had a passion. So he's got all those things. The next one is, it's really hard when things get rough. There's something called the dip. And the dip is when you've started something and you're all excited, and then all of a sudden it gets difficult. And you have to decide if you're going to persevere or if you're going to quit. One of my favorite authors, who's also been on a ton of podcasts, is a guy by the name of Seth Godin. You and I know who he is. We talked about that. And Seth Godin wrote a book a number of years ago called The Dip. It means that either you keep working hard to be successful, or you look at what you're doing and you say, this will never work. I figured out that it'll never work, and you quit. But you have to know when to persevere and when to quit. And he says, it's time to quit when you hit a dead end, which he calls a cul-de-sac. That's when you figure out, this business doesn't work. To keep working at something that doesn't work doesn't make sense. So you got
you have to let it go, yeah?
Which is really hard to let go of your baby.
Oh, tell me about been there, done it.
Yeah, it's hard.
One of the few times that I cry in my life.
Me too. I went into a funk. I was in a business that didn't work, and I became so depressed, which brings me to my 5th one, which is mental health is the most important thing. How you maintain a positive attitude even when things are difficult. Mental health means taking care of yourself, talking to people who can help you, not just having something inside of you eat at you all the time. I have a scale that I use. I call it my mental health scale. It's 1 to 10. If you are a 1, you are so depressed that you actually might be suicidal. It means you can't get out of bed in the morning. You don't see a reason to live. It's the worst feeling, that depression. And I have been there, and it's awful. Being in a good place in my scale of 1 to 10 is being a 5. But before I tell you what a 5 is, I want to tell you what a 10 is.
How 10 looks like.
A 10 is somebody who is in a state of true psychological mania, where they've lost touch with reality and they think they can do anything, but instead of being smart, their mental health has taken control of their brain. And by the way, you can get into a mental health crisis and you can treat it with drugs, and the drugs might not be the right medications.
Become worse.
There are people, right? There are people who get into a depression and they take antidepressants, and something in their brain goes like this, and they start acting in a mania state, where what they say doesn't make sense. The decisions they make don't make sense. They think big, but they don't know how to accomplish. They have no strategy. They have no idea how to do it. They just think, I can do this. But it's a mental health crisis when you think you're so amazing that you can fly. So maintaining the mental health at the level of what I consider to be 5, people who are at 5.5 or 6, they have a lot of energy. They seem pretty happy. They like what they do. They're in good relationships. They don't get angry and lose it on people. 5 is safe. So with all these things, you can have your niche, you can have your passion, you can have your mentor, you can learn the ins and outs of a business. You can get through the dip. You can figure out, is this a dip? Is this a permanent problem? Do I get out of this? Do I persevere? But without taking care of your mental health, none of it works.
Joel, I'm glad that you brought this up, and regarding the mental health and when thing doesn't work, okay? Because you have to let it go, your baby. And I had this brilliant idea once that I'm gonna open the first halal Spanish tapas in Brick Lane. Brick Lane is in London, famous for the curry house, right? So I was the genius that's gonna bring alternative food to the community, and it's gonna be halal, and it's gonna be amazing, and it's so unique that no one had done it before. It was so unique that it was not even market for it. I need to create that market, and this is expensive. So 2 years down the line, when I work in the restaurant, I thought that I want to have a restaurant, but after I worked 2 years, Monday to Sunday, try to make that thing work. And I have back then, and I remember her mom, the first day that opened the door of the restaurant, the inauguration date, where I put on my effort of capital, everything, the restaurant looks amazing. She opened the door of the restaurant and told me, she was a property investor, by the way. She opened the door and told me, Harry, close it. This is not going to work. And I'm like, what? I will make this work, whatever it takes. You're wrong. And well, I pay a big price for it. And long story short, the whole thing ended up with 200,000 pounds in they had to come up with this money. And also the whole thing also end up with, I lose my girlfriend, I lose my friends. It was tough lesson to learn. And I remember that the day that I closed the door of the restaurant, I cried. And I really often, rare visit than that day, because even the restaurant was not working, and come and tell me that, okay, you should close this, and I was getting angry at people. This is my baby, and you go to the state of denial until the loss escalating and escalating, and I'm thinking, I need to stop this, because otherwise this thing's gonna drag my other businesses. It was getting to the point that if I continue to this path, my this one luckily was very successful, and was working autopilot. That's why I had the time to be in the restaurant. We sold over 5 million doing this one. But if I don't pay attention, it will collapse the property business as well. So how you deal with things doesn't work, and you are uh, hitting your wall, your head against the wall. And I'm glad that you said something that sometimes you need to say, stop, this doesn't work. Because you hear Joel out there, people say, don't give up, don't give up. But at the end of the day, how many times have you seen a fly going to a glass window? Yeah. The fly doesn't is not giving up. It's not giving up, but there is no way. Have you seen a fly go through a glass? It's no. If you don't change your approach, if you don't stop and say realistically, look, this doesn't work, or you have a mentor at least that you're willing to listen. Because I was very young back then. I used to have hair, and and starting losing my hair back then. So it was a long time ago, and you feel that you have superpowers, that you can achieve anything. My other business was very successful, so I thought it was a big deal. And this restaurant taught me a big lesson that so I don't know. Sometimes the worst day of your life become the best day of your life, because after this happened to me, Joel, I didn't know what I wanted, but I was sure that what I don't want. And I said, I never want to go through again. Can you expand a little bit more about this subject? Because the life of the entrepreneur is not a straight line; it's a roller coaster. And when the truth is, when thing goes bad, oh God, embrace yourself because everyone disappears.
Yeah. I see all the time, and because I have tenants in the industrial real estate business, I've seen the ones who struggle and I've seen the ones who do very well. And someone who struggles might be the hardest worker. They might work 12 hours a day. They might have the greatest idea. They might have an incredible insight as to how to be well accepted by their customers. But they might not financially be able to make it work because the numbers have to work. It's a numbers game. It's not just loving what you do. The passion is important, and loving your niche is very important.
But it had to make sense.
But when it starts losing a lot of money, you start hating your niche, and you start hating your passion. And what started out as being really great can put you into what we talked about, which is a sad state where you can be depressed and really feel terrible. And so the key thing, I think, is, again, mentorship. I have, at age 66, I have mentors who are, some of them younger than I am, but most of them are older. And I run everything by them. And the key thing is being honest with yourself and being honest with them. So many people lie to themselves. They just the reality that everybody else sees. It's so clear when somebody sees what you're doing and it's wrong and it's not working, but you might not see it. And it's that thing with that mental health. It's not having a good level of self-awareness to understand that if you don't change what it is, it's going to keep being a problem. Now, sometimes people persevere through a problem and it's difficult and they struggle and they lose money and they have all kinds of doubts. I mean, I have every day. Don't you have doubts
I look
every
at
day?
you, and you're looking after a big operation, and still you have doubts. Yeah.
Yeah. I have doubts.
You see, anything can happen. Look what happened with COVID. Yeah. Overnight.
Yeah. This morning I woke up and I had a big project to work on in my real estate business. And I was extremely upset because I wasn't even close to being done with my project. The project is reporting results to my group of investors. And I just felt like the reports were not good. They weren't clear. They weren't as well put together as I wanted. And I've been in a funk part of this day today because I feel like I'm not getting my reports done the way I really want them, in the way that I think my investors would like them. So I called my mentor, who's in Canada, and I said, I need help writing my reports. I'm stuck. And so he's going to help me by writing what I just am and can't do. And then when he writes it, I'll become unstuck because he sees what is happening with me, and he can put it in the proper wording and the proper numbers. And then I don't have to have this feeling of, oh no,
Incomplete.
yeah, I don't want it. I want it to be something to be proud of. But the other thing is, it's not going to happen in one day. I have 23 buildings and I have to do reports on all 23 buildings. I
Wow.
can't do it in one day. So some of this whole mental health thing is taking biteable chunks. You know, the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you don't eat an elephant, but how do you eat it? You know, one bite at a time. You don't eat the whole thing. You cannot take an entire elephant in your mouth. But if you have 100 years, you can eat a little bit every day. If you keep them in the freezer. But the thing that's important is keeping the perspective of Rome wasn't built in a day. And that's that dip. I was in the dip today, you know, like, am I ever going to get out of this dip where I feel so bad because my reports are just not what I want them to be? But they will be. They will in the next week. But I have to work on them every day with help from people who are good at it.
Mental health. I'm glad that you brought this up because all started when you start when you're in business, right? And I think, Joel, that what happened to me was that I lost sight of the business because I want to prove wrong everyone. I want to prove wrong my mother-in-law. I want to prove wrong whatever friend was telling me this is the word. I want to prove wrong. I was the word, try to prove everybody wrong. And when you are operating from that, it's very easy to lose sight of reality, of the numbers, and you let your emotions run. And then when you have a check of reality and you see the numbers, you realize that, I had to close it. And what people gonna think of me? That's the other thing. You make a big deal. Wow, what people gonna think about me? Guess what happened? I closed it, and after a week, everybody forgot.
Yeah.
Me, they didn't care. And then,
Yeah.
but
You get it in
your
your
head get
head. You
inside
get
your
it in your
head,
own head. Yeah.
and it's difficult with the mental health. And yet, Joel, is what you described. Being an entrepreneur is lonely. You need to find mentors. You need to find coaches, good ones, and this is something like, especially your space, which is really specific, and you're talking about big numbers
Yeah.
and high volume. How can you find a mentor in that space? Is we have at least same like you, or if it's not, at least have an idea or an understanding. And the other thing is learning how to canalize. This is something that I learned through the years now, because these negative emotions, Joel, like for example, you started today with the, okay, I'm not happy with my report. Start the negative emotion very small. Since sensefully you do have a mentor and you already have a conversation, now this negative emotion already canalized and you let that go because now you are in different state. But what happens is that sometimes, in bad times, this negative emotion keep accumulating, accumulating, accumulating. And you said emotional pain can end up in physical pain. You can kill yourself. You can end up with cancer. You can end up with heart attack. And then what's the point to have all these businesses and making all these millions and this and that? At the end of the day, you're gonna wake up in the morning with a heart attack or with the depression or trying to kill yourself. So when you find out that, because I had to discover this myself in that I have to put more time into my mental health and into my health, to take this seriously. And for example, I'm doing a lot of work, help me a lot to canalize all my thoughts and everything that I'm thinking and what I'm gonna do and what type of project I wanna take and what I wanna do. No, helping me to play tennis, dance salsa. So how you realize that you have to deal with it, and there is a way that you have to let go the negative emotion, and what is actually is working for you. Some people do meditation. For me, meditation doesn't work, but maybe that just me. So, or you still, I mean, there is a process that is always improving, right? How are you?
Well, that's a great. I do like meditation. When I was in my depression in
Oh,
when
wow.
the great crisis in 2008, I had 50 buildings.
Oh, my God.
I owed 7 banks $70 million of guarantees.
Whoa.
And I was in a position where things were going bad and I couldn't fix it. It was
That's
over my
tough.
yeah. So
Bad
I went.
timing.
It was very tough. I went into a really
And then you have everybody asking you for money, yeah? At the same time,
yeah.
right? Oh,
Oh yeah.
my God.
Yeah, it was difficult.
Which is also has nothing to do with you. It's an external crisis. Who's gonna thought,
Yes.
right?
Right. So I learned something from that for me. You want to hear something that you probably
Absolutely.
haven't heard before, which is people have a risk tolerance level that's different from all other people. Your risk tolerance level and mine may be completely different. And I have a very low risk tolerance level because of what happened in 2008, because it was so emotionally difficult and draining. I made a decision that I could not take big risk anymore. It doesn't go with my personality type. It doesn't go with my character. I'm not a big risk taker. I think some people become gamblers in business. I think that they don't recognize when it happens and they become almost like a gambler in a casino where their approach is, I'm going to make the big one. I'm going to make a fortune. I'm going to do great. But they don't have a plan. They just want to get rich. Now, there are people who've done that and have gotten rich. And a lot of them are extremely wealthy. But I'll tell you what I think a lot of billionaires are extremely unhappy because they're not in a mental place, even though they've been really successful, where they can forgive themselves for not being more successful. Because there's always going to be somebody who's more successful, who makes more money. There's one guy always on the top, right?
Absolutely.
Always. There's one guy on the top richest person. There's always one. But other than that one person, everybody's got someone who's more successful than they are. And if you do the comparison game and you want to catch up in gambling, that's something.
Oh, that's exhausting and risky, yeah?
It's called chasing. It's called chasing. It's when you lose money and you say, well, I'm just going to gamble more until I get it back. All it does is make you miserable and
made the situation worse.
It's hard to win when you're miserable. It's hard to win when you're miserable. So winning isn't having the most money. I think winning is having the most serenity and feeling really good, so that when you're doing each of the things you do during the day, your thought is, this is really nice. I'm grateful for this thing that's happening in my life. Grateful for my children. Grateful for my friends. Grateful for my health.
What I have achieved. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that in the mental health, right? I have this recently because conducting this podcast, and after meeting amazing people like you, I realized that that I don't need to prove anything to anybody anymore, right? So when you are from that space, right, the way that you're gonna live your life is amazing, because I think that even when I fail in this restaurant and even this first business that I had, the property, we managed to sell over 5 million, the public speaking business, right? So I think maybe because lack of experience, or you go into business for the right, you want to do business because you want to prove that you make it work. You want to prove. Sometimes you don't even want to prove to you want to prove to, now you have client tenants and employees, and you need to prove that you can pay the salary and the company gonna grow. Sometimes you are inside this ecosystem and you're not even doing it for yourself. I remember the day my property business, I arrived to the office and my manager told me, Harry, go home. We don't need you here. We can grow this company without you. So the company took his own life with, I make obsolete myself in my first company. And I remember I was in the house. What I was doing is watching movies and upset rather than be happy. That's the dream of the other entrepreneur. You should be take the money and go travel the world. So I'm upset watching movies. I'm feeling uncomfortable. All this money is coming to me and I'm not doing anything and they're running the business and I'm watching movies and this like that. Then one day after 3 months, I open the door. I find the first restaurant. I said I'm gonna do this restaurant thing, and then look at I sabotage myself and
Oh, tell me about your business. Are you still
mm.
in it?
Well, for the moment, with the escalator, we have it from 15 years. We have something we call rent to rent. So we're renting a, a, a flat and then room by room, right? And then before of when Airbnb didn't exist and things like that, it was a very good business model. Now with the new advance of technology, there is they call it now service accommodation, right? So the whole business got more work and less margin than before. And at the moment that we were doing it was amazing because it was a period of the recession, right? So I was on the other side of the coin where people lost their jobs, right? And because people lost the jobs, nobody wanted anymore to rent the whole flat. They couldn't have their whole money, so they only could afford the rooms. And then on the other hand, the landlord, they all have all the houses empty because of the same reason. Nobody can rent the flat because people only can afford a room. So then I was in the middle where all the flats empty and the landlord begging for us to take over the properties on one side, and then on the other side, all the clients, everybody's looking needed a room. Nobody needed a flat because they couldn't afford. Yeah, and look beautiful and very profitable until things change. And the recession finish, everybody find job, everything come back to normal, and now landlord raising the the prices of the rent, and then the tenants now have money to rent the whole flat, and now margins still to squeeze, and then Airbnb comes and something that was wonderful one day, eventually you had to start to de-escalating because I mean we started other businesses that we could make better. We started to do events and public speaking, so it was better model for us. But I did learn a lot about property. And one question I want to ask you is the following, because this broadcast, out of the 500 millionaires that we interview in this broadcast, 80% come from United States, and 1 of 5 are property investors. So why do you think that property is one of the most powerful vehicles to become wealthy? This is a statement that I'm doing based on the statistic of this podcast, right? Because this is proven. Everybody can listen this podcast, and if you see all the 500 episodes, you will find out that 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6, they are in property. Everybody's doing different. Some people are doing development, some people are doing storage, some people look at you doing commercial, some people are doing different strategy, but somehow flipping, you name it. So why do you think that, or maybe you disagree with this statement, or is it property a one good vehicle in order to become wealthy, or can you share the good, the bad, or the ugly of this vehicle to create wealth?
Well, first of all, I love real estate, so I'm a property person. That is my passion. I had my mentorship. That's where I learned, and I'm still doing it. But I don't think it's necessarily the best way to make the money that you want or need for your life. I think it's important to be diversified into different area investment. So I believe in real estate quite a bit, and I believe in the way that we do it is different than the way anyone else does because we have little or no debt because of what I went through in 2008. We buy buildings and we have 20 or 30 or 50 investors in a deal, and they join me because they like the safety of my kind of investment, which is the primarily debt-free or 20 or 30% loan to value ratio with a very, very small mortgage. But I'm not saying that everybody do what I do. I'm saying that everyone should
Sound to
have.
me, Joe, that you have very good cash flow, right?
Yeah, very good cash flow, because if the bank doesn't get much or there's no bank, there's a lot of cash flow. We have it makes it easier. It makes it easier to feel safe and sleep at night, to not have the bank breathing down our neck.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
So I'll give you one example. We bought a building about 5 months ago in a little industrial in a town here in the Chicago area, west of O'Hare Airport, that's called Carroll Stream. And we bought a 10,000 square foot building, and the building is occupied by a company called Topcon, Topcon, and they make and distribute and rent out products for people who do surveying, people who build roads, people who build sidewalks, who build buildings. Everybody needs a survey, because you have to know from one point to another what the slope is of the ground, what the slope is of the water coming off of the stormwater coming roof going into the parking lot. So Topcon is a company that's a division of a Japanese company on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. It's a very large business. And we bought the building for $1.5 million. And we raised all the money from 30 people. Some people put in 250,000 and some people put in 25,000.
Wow.
And there's no bank, and the return on deal is 7.5%. So if somebody puts 100,000 in, they get $7,500 a year. But also, theoretically,
Wow.
the value goes up by owning it long term. So we buy these things and we own them. And every year in our leases, the rent goes up a little bit. So next year, the return might be 7.7%. And the year after that, it might be 7.9, and then 8.2. And eventually, when we own them for 10 or 12 years, the returns are up around 9 or 10%.
And a great tenant.
With a great tenant. Now, the tenant can leave. You said we have tenant can leave. But if it's vacant for a little while, we're okay, because we don't owe the bank any money, and we can go through a period of 3 or 4 months until we get a new tenant without having rent coming in, and still survive without any kind of threat. Although if you owed money to a bank, the bank would be saying, what are you going to do? You've got a vacancy. You've got to pay us. What happens if it's longer? So I like
and if it take longer, they can take away the building, no?
Right. If the biggest problem would can foreclose.
Yeah.
We have no bank, they cannot foreclose.
Absolutely.
So it's a different but I think people shouldn't put all their money with me. They should put it into other things. And I don't think everyone should only be in real estate. Someone once told me many, many years ago, you should have stocks, you should have bonds, and you should have some other alternative investments. Real estate is not the only thing out there just because that's what you do. And I agree with that. I don't think anyone should have all the money with me, but people really like safe investments for part of their portfolio. It's not quite the same as a government bond. A government bond, if you have a Treasury note, chances are pretty darn good that the United States will pay that note. But it only pays 4%, and it doesn't ever go up in value. So if someone can average 8% in a real estate deal where there's no debt and it's unlikely to lose your money, that's what we call alpha. It's the difference between what you can get safely and what you can get as a return in a piece of property without the risk of losing your money like right around the corner. We don't like that.
I mean, it's backed by the asset, right?
Back asset, right? The asset, and if there's you can always sell it,
and everybody gets the money, right?
Right. And if the market goes bad and we can't sell it for as much as we bought it for, by having no debt or very little debt, you lose very little money. If you lose 10% on an all cash deal, you lose 10%. If you could buy a stock and you knew that you could buy that stock at it would never go below 85 or 90, but there was all kinds of upside, and while you own it, you're getting a dividend. That's hard to say no to. But if you have debt, let's say you have a 75% loan on $1.5 million deal. So you owe the bank approximately $1,200,000 and you have $300,000 of equity. If you lose that same 10 or 15% of the value of the building that cost $1.5 million, you lose $200,000. You're losing $200,000 of your $300,000 investment. So you're losing 65 to 70% of what you put in because of the bank, because you have to pay them no matter what. So our approach is limit the downside, have good upside, and invest in other things besides this. I don't mind someone taking a lot of risk in the property business, but I won't do it. It's not good for me. It's not good for my little niche. My niche is super safe, equity, low debt or no debt. It's my niche. And I feel really comfortable with it. And people who know
the
me,
investors that invested in this project, they are also comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one investor that just joined me. He's met me. He saw me on LinkedIn. He called me up. He said, I've never heard of anybody who does little or no debt. I've never heard of that. So I'd like to join you and I'll put in 300,000, which for me, he said, is an important amount of money. He said, but the first thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to tell my wife about this, because I'm not just going to invest it and then tell her I did it. I want her permission. Does that make sense?
Wow, fantastic. That's brilliant. So Joel, we talk about for me, I'm grateful about everything. I say this is where all started, and the wonderful life that I have mainly is so my property business, right? This is running this business. I learned a few lessons like huge breakthroughs you can make in a day, the same amount of money that people can make in a month. And you have employees and people work and things that sounds impossible in the real world. And then even becoming an investor, what is even more spectacular, because the money goes and work for you rather than change your time for money. So the dynamic change, because money doesn't get tired. It doesn't need to arrive. It works 24/7.
Yeah, but I have one more thing that I want to mention about safety in real estate. I don't know if you feel this way, but I believe it's important to have a specialty and know a particular part of the market or a market niche. And so I believe that our niche of doing nothing but industrial real estate, not only that, doing nothing but smaller buildings, not the big gigantic buildings, smaller ones, and also doing them in one location where I know the location extremely well, where we just are buying a building in a town here called Wooddale. And I have summer interns working for me this summer. And I went out to Wooddale with them. There's 202 buildings. And I divided Wooddale into 4 sections. So there'd be 50 buildings per section. And each of the interns was responsible for going door to door in the industrial park, learning who owns each building, who the tenants are, how big they are, how they're laid out. We have a rating system where we rate buildings on a scale of 1 to 100, and we take off from the 100 for various things that are wrong with the building. And I trained them, because I'm their mentor, how to analyze the number that a building would be assigned based on 1 to 100. I'll buy a building if it's a 90 or greater, but if it's a building that's under 90, I don't want it. It will cause trouble in the future. Something's wrong.
Absolutely. So Joel, if someone is in love with this conversation and want to learn more from you, how people can find you, how this process works?
Well, we have a website called britproperties.com, BRIT, which you and I discussed. Doesn't mean we're British. It's named after the property manager that works in property management, who started with us, whose name is Brad. Stands for Brad really is terrific. Brit. He was He was when we started the business many years ago. He was the first property manager, and so I decided to name the company after how great he was. So BritProperties.com, and we're very specialized, extremely specialized.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of you following the broadcast. See you in our next episode of Unstoppable. How brave entrepreneurs like you break the wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.